Kerrod, welcome to episode 13 of Your Wealth Playbook.
Exciting guest on today, Jared, that we've got. We'll talk through Peter Shiels from Shiels & Co. Former professional rugby league player, born in Bankstown, grew up in Mount Druitt, played for the Knights, a little bit in WA as well, and also had some success in St Helens before starting a couple of businesses.
Apparently met a couple of famous people over there while he's in St Helens as well, we'll hear.
Mate, he's got some cracking stories, playing at Old Trafford. It's a really good deep dive into family, into business, into the mind and life of a professional sportsman, and especially life after football, transitioning into entrepreneurship, business, and he's got some good key life values that he still has from his journey of a rugby league player.
Mate, let's get into it. I'm excited for this one.
Peter, thank you for coming in today.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. You're a busy man.
We are, but it's, I've only done a couple of podcasts, so it's, mate, thanks very much for the invitation.
No problem. A little bit of an introduction for yourself.
Yes.
You are a former professional rugby league player, one of the good guys, now business owner,
Yes.
property agent, or
Yes.
sales agent here in Newcastle. How else would you describe yourself?
Obviously, first and foremost, I'm a husband and a father of 3 children. Okay, so that comes before anything, as you guys are well aware. Look, obviously, mate, with business, it takes up a hell of a lot of your time, and mate, especially in real estate, where you work the Saturday, and try and get a little bit of time off during the week, but mate, to try and do those activities and keep fit. But being in real estate, you're sitting on your backside a fair bit, so mate, you can pack on a few pounds. So I'm trying to sort of balance it out a little bit. But look, obviously outside of work and family comes first. And look, I would say there's not much. Look, we love to travel when we can, but other than that, it's pretty much work and mate, a bit of family time. That's the nuts and bolts of our life.
Like that family came first. That's obviously something that's very important to us, and it's lovely to hear when that shines through. That's the most important thing, because that's why we do it, isn't it?
It is, and look, you know what? It's the backbone of, mate, Australian lifestyle and community, and mate, look, the strength of families, mate, is the strength of your community. So, mate, look, as I said, mate, our eldest child is 25 now, and youngest is 19, and they're always still your babies, aren't they?
Yes, mine and Jared's are a lot younger than yours are at the moment, Peter. But growing up in Bankstown, professional rugby league player, stepping into business, life's come through a bit of a journey. I would imagine that family has been with you every step of the way.
Yeah, Kerrod, look, I was born in Bankstown, but actually grew up in the wild west of Mount Druitt. So we were there. I was there up until about 18 years of age. Mate, obviously then went into professional football when I think I was 18. Was at Penrith there for a couple of years. Moved over to Perth. So Perth had a team there for 3 years, and would you believe it's 30 years, 30-year anniversary this July. So tossing up whether or not to go over. But look, it just goes so fast, and then we eventually moved to Newcastle, played with the Knights there for a few years, and then we headed off to England and played with St Helens, which was an amazing opportunity and great lifestyle there for that 2 years. Made a little bit too cold for me, so mate, 2 years was plenty.
Yep. Had some success though over there, I believe.
We did. We had mate, St Helens is one of the bigger clubs over there in the Super League, and at the time we had some really good Australians and Kiwis. I think you can have about 5 imports, but the English guys were actually usually you'll have the imports will be the better players, but at St Helens, mate, the English guys were outstanding. So we were lucky enough to sort of slot into that really good roster that they have. Look, we won. We beat Brisbane in the World Club Challenge. Played at it would have been at Wembley in in the Challenge Cup, which is like the FA Cup in the soccer over there. That Wembley was getting redeveloped, so we ended up playing at Twickenham, which was amazing. Won that. Didn't go so well in the actual Super League. I think we got knocked out in the semi-final, but the year later we won the Super League, which was at Old Trafford, which was incredible. So all in all, we had an awesome time over in England. It was great.
Amazing experiences.
It was great. But it was funny, like when I was a small child and I remember watching with my father, mate, we'd get up, early hours of the morning and watch the Challenge Cup, at Wembley, and always wanted to, look, and if I was lucky enough to play professionally, which I was, I always wanted to go and play in England. And was lucky enough to sort of tick those boxes, and it was amazing.
Tell me, what's the experience like running out onto Old Trafford?
Yeah, it was great. Look, honestly, the grass is like carpet. It's just pristine, and it was funny. I think the week leading up to the grand final, Sir Alex Ferguson was the coach of Man U, and he was just blowing up deluxe in the papers, and anyone who wanted to listen, he just said, "Don't let the rugby league guys get on the field. They tear it up." And you know what? It was really funny. And then he actually won. When we won, he actually came into the dressing sheds, and it was incredible.
That is incredible. Wow. They do blow up about us wrecking the fields, though.
Oh, but in saying that, they all love rugby league. Okay, because look, soccer is just is an amazing sport, and especially over there, so it's a religion, but. That's all that's in your face is just football non-stop, and mate, the actual English guys, and especially the guys who lived and grew up in the north. Like I think at the time, Ryan Giggs, I think his father actually played rugby league for Wales. So he would sort of come in and out of sort of our season, and there's another guy, Nick Barmby. He was up from Hull. He was at Liverpool at the time, but. He would come to training in our games, and it was pretty cool.
Amazing.
It was great.
And talk to me, Sir Alex Ferguson. They were pretty successful back in those days. I would imagine that it would have been a pretty big highlight, would be for me, if you're a young fella watching.
It was really cool, and he sort of spoke to us and had a little bit to say, but I didn't really get to speak to him. But our coach at the time, Ian Millwood, he had a lot to do with him, and they would bounce ideas off. And but he was huge. Still is huge, isn't he?
Timing-wise, that would have been just after the treble as well. That was 99. So when were you over there? 2000?
Well, 2001, 2002. Yeah, it was.
So the height of their powers. First English club to do the treble.
It was. But look, being from Australia, and I think most people in Australia growing up, especially when I grew up, it was Liverpool, because obviously we had obviously Craig Johnson, and we lived St Helens is right about 10 minutes from Liverpool, and we spent a lot of time in Liverpool.
Good man.
It was outstanding. But the thing is that we would go to Anfield, and Anfield versus Old Trafford was just a completely different sort of vibe and atmosphere, but both equally as good. But just that Liverpool connection with Australia, it's just that little bit more. Yeah, it was cool.
Bankstown, Mount Druitt.
Yes.
WA, Newcastle, St Helens. Mm-hmm. What made you come back to Newcastle?
Oh, look, when we retired, came back, we bought and built a house in Penrith. We were there for about 5 years. Kids were all born in Penrith. Look, Penrith was great to live. And obviously both my wife and our families were there. Just got to the point when we were here in Newcastle, we were here for 3 years. It's just such a great place to live and to bring up your children. Just said to my wife, I said, look, you know what? What's your thoughts on going back to Newcastle? And it was hard for her because obviously her family's she's very tight with the family, as we all are. But we made the move just purely for the fact I just thought it could give me, business wise, had probably a few more contacts and recent contacts. So, but the main reason was just lifestyle for the kids. I think Newcastle's an awesome place to bring up a family.
So do we.
Yeah, and that was pretty much the reason for it.
Yep. Business-wise, coming back, you mentioned it. Were you an agent in Penrith?
Not at all. No. So I originally I came back, and look, back when we were back in England, St Helens, what we were doing is we were buying these terrace houses, 2 up and 2 down in the slums of Liverpool, and we're talking slums. So you've got Toxteth and Wavertree and mate, really hard. Look, we think we've got some poor areas in Australia. It's nothing like England. England is like you see on American TV, and you've got that ghetto lifestyle.
Really?
Oh, mate, honestly, it's a really tough life there in some parts of England. But the bug really come from buying and selling in those areas in England. Come back to Australia, I did not want to work on weekends. Okay, so
that seems.
I didn't want to work on weekends, so I ditched the idea of becoming an agent, and mate tried my hand in the building industry. We had a metal roofing business for a while there. Way too tall for that, and in the summer, it was too tough for me. So that subsided fairly quickly. Come to Newcastle, and we opened up a gym, which we had for 6-7 years. Mate, it's a pretty tough industry, the gym industry, the fitness industry, where if there's a gym on every single corner. And to be brutally honest, I'd sort of, it didn't interest me in the way that I thought it would. And then out of pretty much necessity of supporting my family, I said, look, mate, I'm going to try my hand at real estate, and got into real estate, and mate, loved it and really enjoyed it, and back to working weekends, which I thought I didn't want to do, but in saying that, it's been really rewarding in a lot of ways, and mate, we love it.
Peter, what do you say some of the disciplines that you've taken from professional sport to inject into your career?
Disciplines? Look, I think the biggest thing, and especially in real estate, so whereas any professional sports, man or woman, they're out there in the public, okay, and they just got a target on their back, and there's a lot of, look, obviously with the praise, there's a lot of negativity, and everyone's an armchair critic, and you've got to have a very thick skin. There's a lot of knockbacks with injuries and negative chit chat, and look, we were lucky enough that there wasn't any social media when we were around. So these guys and girls that participate in professional sports now, they have to deal with a lot, especially with a lot of negative talk online, and but it just gives you a lot of resilience. So I think the work ethic and the continuous day on day to get better, to be able to do well for yourself and your family, but to actually still compete and hold down a job within that really competitive environment. It's very similar to real estate, and I would assume it's very similar to a lot of other industries as well. But the disciplines, just stacking it day by day, doing those things that make you a better whatever it is that you do. I think those disciplines that I've learned being a professional sportsman has carried over into the real estate industry that I'm now in.
Lots of different businesses first before real estate, though.
Mm-hmm.
You speak,
Two.
You speak about discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Former rugby league player.
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever employ a rugby league player coming out of?
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely. Firstly, look, as I said, they're very resilient, tough in a lot of ways. Obviously, constantly trying to get better at what they do. High achievers in wanting to do well, either for themselves or for their families. The amount of the amount of rejection that you get in a professional environment, it does steal you. Dealing with, as I said, adversity, especially, as I said, in real estate, there's a lot of emotions that are attached to this industry. I think the emotional intelligence that, and not all rugby league players will have that, but anyone that does and has played rugby league or professional sport at a high level, and they've got some, a good level of emotional intelligence, will do really well. But to answer your question, absolutely, in a heartbeat. We've actually got Garth Brennan, who's a former first grade rugby league coach. He's with us. He's doing really well, and he has all those attributes which is transferred into being a really good agent as well.
Yeah. It's a common misconception for rugby league players that they get really nervous when they're coming out because they're like, what am I going to do? I've only ever played rugby league. I don't have any other skill set, but you're an employer, you're a businessman, you know the disciplines that go through of any professional athlete. Most businesses would take that on and go, if you've got that level of dedication, if you apply that into real estate or whatever we're doing, highly employable.
Absolutely. And coming in with a professional sports person, they obviously get to a level, the highest level in their industry, but they've started since they were either 5 or 6. Some a little bit older, but it's all they've known. And then if you don't prepare yourself for life after obviously in my case rugby league, you fall off a cliff. And look, it was really difficult, and I would say, I don't know the percentage, but it's been extremely high, whereas depression and all those things would set in because you have no skill set in what you do. But in saying that, all those things I just described before will lead you into another pathway which gives you such a head start. But it's a funny feeling. It's just, it's definitely not easy. And those other little career paths that I had before real estate, it was just, I didn't know what to do. And look, as I said, I was, renovating and buying and selling property. So I went down that path in the building game, and it wasn't for me. And on the other flip side, I opened up a gym, which from scratch, and we did well there for a time. And that was the other part of my transition, whereas I'd trained my whole life. So I thought that, that would transfer into, the fitness industry. But they all merged in together. And the skills that I learned, obviously with, some successes and failures, has led us into, a real estate career.
Was there any sort of support from the Super League or from the NRL at that point?
Zero. So no, there wasn't.
Yeah.
Jared, there was zero, and
because that's been a big change in the
what
the
they
landscape.
do now, the NRL do it, and I'm not too sure about Super League, but or any other codes, but NRL now is just do such a good job, and they run. Look, they'll be one of the best sporting organisations there is. Look, anywhere. So look, when we were obviously, back in the early 2000s, 90s, mate, once you're retired, you just you're done. You're done with, and that's that's life. I'm not having a whinge about it, but I just think there was such a hole that was left in your life that it was very difficult for a lot of sports people. That's for sure.
Was there any people, like when you went to the Super League or towards the end of that you leaned on for advice? Any other former players or
no, there wasn't.
mentors?
No, there wasn't, and that's probably just my personality. But if I was to give any advice, I would definitely encourage people to do so. But I just, me being me, I just, from scratch, we started three businesses with pretty much no experience, and that was because I thought and I wanted to do it, and I was going to do it my way. And look, there was a lot of times where it wasn't the right way to do it, but third time third time business-wise. I've got some really good people around me, and obviously with partners in our business.
What sort of challenges did you face when you first entered into the real estate industry?
Challenges were real estate industry is like obviously with all businesses. Is the longer you're in it, and you do the right thing, obviously it'll snowball and you'll get a nice little roll on. So the challenges for me, I started when I was 42. As I said, out of necessity and didn't know what to do, and I had 3 young children and a wife. Started on, I think it was $1,000 a week, trying to support a family of 5, which was just, we were going backwards. So it was like there was no plan B, and just had to make everything work. Worked 6 days a week, long hours, which again, we all do. So those challenges, trying to support a family, knowing that there was there was obviously no one coming to help you. And that's, as soon as you realise that, the better you'll go. But the challenges was just trying to stay afloat to make and go through long enough, whereas it wasn't going to drown my family, and try and make a career out of it, which, lucky enough, we ended up doing that.
Do you remember when you were in that, how long it took you to feel successful?
Well, a couple of years. Yeah, a fair few years. It was a really look. I actually worked 2 jobs to support. It was. It would have been easily 3 to 4 years. Yeah, I would say. And then I felt, obviously, we could breathe a little bit with obviously getting a good roll on, and people starting to come back to you and seek you out in regards to working with them. And but it was good, easily a good 3 or 4 years, and they were quite tough.
Is there one particular moment that you remember, or one particular return client, or one particular sale that you felt like, yeah, this is it, this is happening?
No, I can't pinpoint anything right here and now. But yeah, look, it was just come to a point whereas obviously the kids were playing sport and dancing and all the rest, all those activities that cost a fortune, as you guys know. And then finally, I think there was a weekend. It was a long weekend, which is coming up next week. Whereas the 2 kids were playing basketball, my daughter was playing at a concert down in Sydney, and I think for the first time we could afford everything and pay for everything rather than being on the back foot. So that was about 4 years in, but it was a tough 4 years starting the real estate career for sure.
Started Shiels & Co.
Yes.
Owning and operating. As you mentioned, the third business, you probably learnt more from the business mistakes.
Absolutely.
That we do. Have you got any key insights around when you do start a business, what not to do, or what lessons you learned from some failures?
Look, obviously, if you're going to start any business, you want to have some sort of knowledge and experience in that business. The quicker that you can attach yourself to either a mentor or someone who does whatever it is that you're, in our case in real estate, to be around someone who, in our case, who lists a lot of property and sells a lot of property. I know when I was at my first employer, the best agent there, I would sit next to and listen to him on the phone. I would listen to him, how he interacted with buyers and sellers, and he was outstanding, and he helped me a lot. And I will say this, the guys that I was with, they did help me, and I was very appreciative. But it was a time when the time did come, and that was after, I think, about 6 years. I just decided that, I think now's the time to have a crack, and we did. It was just after COVID, and away we went.
Why have a crack?
Why?
Yeah.
Why not? You know what? Life is so short. It goes so quick. You want to live with, least amount of regrets as possible. And look, I had those two businesses, and I won't call them failures, but they weren't super successes, that's for sure. But I was always of the mindset I wanted to have a crack and work predominantly for myself, and that's not always the best option either. But that was my mentality, and that was my my personality. But as far as when the best time is, when you think about it, you act on it, and away you go. That's my advice. If you want to, get as obviously, as I said, if you can attach yourself to someone that has done it before, it'll cut through all the mistakes that you will go through if you haven't had the experience.
Find some good mentors.
Have to.
Absolutely. Back yourself.
You got to back yourself.
If you're the smartest in the room, you're in the wrong room, aren't you?
Correct. All those things that we all read about, and mate, they're also true. So, but yeah, that's one good saying that's absolutely true.
Shiels and Co. property now,
Yes.
also property managers as
Yes.
well as listing agents or sales agents now. Business is obviously going well.
We're going really well.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
How do you and put good people around you now to have a successful business?
So look, we've just obviously 4.5 years in. Look, we've had staff obviously employed and then sort of let go, or some have left. We've attracted the right people. Okay, and what I mean by that is the people, and we've just got 2 new agents who have just come on. One's come on this week, and Cam Stevenson is an outstanding agent, and he's had a really big career around the lake. 10-year agent. He's come over because I've met Cam a few times, got on really well with him. He's come over because he can see that we're doing well and got a bright future. It aligns with us morally, and so he's come to us. Got another guy, Andrew Smouse, another really good agent. He's been in the industry about 15 years. Again, he's approached us, and we've got another 3 or 4 other agents. Same thing. They've come to us. So initially it was just myself, my daughter Ruby, who is sales support now, and then obviously business partners, and we've just grown from now. We've just got I think we've got 13 staff. So yeah, we're growing at a nice organic pace.
13 staff in 4 years is no small feat.
No, it's good. That's really good.
You've got to be doing the right things culturally if you're attracting talent to come your way.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Look, we've got a really good culture there, and we always talk about culture, look, in every business and workplace and sporting teams, all those things. But if you don't have those right pieces, mate, it can really upset the apple cart. But look, we've, as I said, it takes time, and we're organically grown I think at the right pace, and we've attracted the right people. So it's now, on a sporting sense, it's starting to bear fruit on the scoreboard.
Very good. I love the sporting analogies.
Well, it's easy, isn't it? I'm not very educated, so that just gives me probably an easier in.
Absolutely. The cultural fits, we see it, and a little bit in the media at the moment. Lockie Galvin, a bit disgruntled with the Tigers, how they're going. He's just moved with the Bulldogs. They're top of the table, going well.
Yep.
Everyone's asking the question, is that going to be a good cultural fit? Because you bring a bloke in here that's on potentially lots of money, he's going to displace a couple of people. For me, I've seen it through my career as well. The cultural fit, if you've got the wrong pieces, it is to the detriment of the team, and sometimes management don't get that.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you've seen that through your rugby league career.
For sure.
How do you weed that out? If you're looking to grow a business, how do you make sure that everyone is a cultural fit, or you either get them on the bus or you get them off the bus?
Well, that's it, and you don't know. And look, when you'll go through interview processes, and you'll formally and informally meet people in the workplace and out of the workplace, and that'll before they either come over and join you, that'll only predominantly be for a few hours collectively. So you don't and look, you'll ask people that know them or they're associated with. You don't know until they actually walk through the doors and they're there for a specific amount of time. It's exactly the same as any sporting team, but if they are there and they're disruptive and if they're not the right fit, you need to remove them quickly, and that's business. It's straight down the line, and if they're not, as I said, not a good fit, business wise and culturally, they've got to go.
Do you feel like it reiterates that you're doing the right thing if you're getting calls like that proactively to come across and join?
No doubt. Yeah, and we are. Got an outstanding, obviously team in the office, running things and what we do outside of. Look, and you can't. It's impossible to please everyone. Different circumstances in different people in all our lives. But all in all, I think we do a pretty good job.
Talking about culture and family, you mentioned Ruby working in the office. We've both got daughters.
Yep.
How's that go?
Rube's awesome. I love her. Obviously, she's I love all our kids, but Rube's our eldest. So originally, this is how Shiels & Co. Property started. Rube had just finished year 12. Got a job at New South Wales Health. COVID hit. She was only there for I think a few months. Obviously, Rube was first one on, so she's first one off. And then within that COVID period and thereon after, Rube would obviously go for multiple job interviews and got down to the nitty gritty of between 1 and 2 and. Rube she was constantly missing out because she was just 18 and there was a lot of people out of work, and obviously the experience out there with unemployed was quite high. So look, it was devastating to watch. So I just said to my wife, I said, you know what, I'm thinking about a change, and the main reason is I'm going to start, and mate Rube's going to start with me, and then it was born from there. So. And then Rube's now obviously was in admin, and now she's sales support to a lot of agents, and she's going outstandingly well.
You started a business just to give your daughter
a job,
a head start.
Pretty much.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was cool, and I do love that story because it was born out of love, and it was born out of obviously the things that you do for your kids. But I knew she's such a great kid and. Super intelligent, and it was just devastating to see at the time, and it was just a horrible time for a lot of people.
So Rubes is the eldest. What are you doing for the other two?
Well, Noah, he's
Gonna start 2 more businesses by the sound of things.
Yeah, no, look, Noah's 21. Again, outstanding kid, loves his basketball, and he's been working with a good friend of mine as a carer. Look, that'll have a shelf life for a 21-year-old. He does love it, and his clients love him, but he's super keen to get into real estate. So he's done a lot of his courses, and mate, Noel, he'll come into the business as well, and he's pretty pumped to sort of start. But and then our youngest, Saffron, she's a professional basketballer, so she left us when she was 16 to go down to Canberra at the Institute of Sport, and now she's been a professional basketballer for 2 years up in Townsville. So we miss her, but like she's back now with us for a couple of months. She's just had a foot operation, and it's good to have her for a few months. But mate, that's the first time we've had our family back since last Christmas. So but they're all going well.
You speak so passionately about family and business. How do you manage to balance it all up?
Well, I think we just got a good balance. Look, I'll try and have it doesn't always work, but 1 day a week off during the week, just so. Well, Wednesday's my day to cook, so. So that just gives me a little bit of time. But look, I don't know. You have to. Otherwise, look, and you do see a lot of business owners or high performing, people in whatever field they are, they'll spend so much time on their business and their working life, and as we just mentioned, it goes so quick. They don't spend enough time with their family, and I have seen it, especially with this industry. You see a lot of broken families, unfortunately, and I'm well aware of the demands of this working life and the emotions that are attached to it with clients. I try and separate that as best as I can because, and it doesn't always work, because it will and it can affect your family. And at the end of the day, your family is first, second, and third. So you know what? Nothing becomes before your family. So, mate, it's an easy balancing act. I feel.
It is the flavour of the month, maybe the year, or the topic around a work-life balance. If you're a business owner, you've got the little bit of flexibility. Yes, it comes with, we might have to do a weekend or a night time, especially being a sales agent. I could imagine when people are calling and it's a high emotion transaction for people.
Well, you have to attend to it. And look, don't get me wrong. Look, we're doing anywhere between 8 and sort of 11 open homes on a Saturday between Natalie and I, and then you've got an appraisal at the end of the day. So sometimes on a Saturday you're home at 6 or 7 o'clock. Look, I think if you in any field, I'm probably going to contradict myself here, but in any field, anything you do to balance, it is very difficult because there's a level and a time factor where to do it really well, you're going to have to spend a lot of time on whatever you do. But again, as a business owner and in real estate, you're not just confined to an office. So it probably gives me a little bit of flexibility. But I balance it as best I can anyway.
I think it is just a balancing act. It's not just around I'm going to have every Tuesday or Wednesday off and that's my family time, because the business will have its demands as well as children will have the demands. You've got a young professional basketball player who's just had foot surgery. I'm sure that if she said, "Dad, you need to get to Townsville to come and pick me up," I'm sure he'd be on the flight up there.
For sure, and we've done it. Both my wife and I, throughout the last 2 years have done that, because obviously she started her professional career as a 17-year-old. So she's still a young adult, and mate, there's lots of emotional, needs as well as physical needs, and especially with a daughter, I think mums are probably a little bit more equipped, but but it's a time thing which you have to definitely make time for it.
Where does Peter Shiels want to leave his legacy for his 3 children?
Legacy, I'm not too sure about legacy and all that type of talk. Look, I just look, to be brutally honest, as I said, financially, there's been times where most families go through really difficult times, and we have, and I won't go sort of through it, but I just look, and again with Rube, I want to be able to, if they want to, we've started a business whereas they can get some experience in that, and have a future for their families. To be honest, I just want to obviously be, as all fathers do, be able to support and provide for their families, and that's pretty much it. To be a good person, so they can then obviously pass that on to obviously their own families, and that's pretty much it. Look, people talk about legacies and all the rest of it, and I actually saw a thing on, I think it was on YouTube, with Mike Tyson, and he had a young girl interview him, and I love some of his sayings because he's so brutally truthful. But the little girl asked about what legacy he wants to leave, and he just looked at her and he just said, "After you're gone, you're dust. So people forget who you are, but your family don't. And all you need to do is be a good person, so then they can follow your footsteps to continue that tradition for their families, and that's pretty much the legacy I would like to leave.
Peter, mate, thank you for joining us today.
Kerrod, my pleasure. Jared, thank you, mate.
Thank you, mate.
I appreciate it.
We've got a little fast five to finish off with.
Okay.
Peter, do you have a mantra or an analogy or something that you live by, a little quote?
Mate, rip right in. Only got 24 hours to do so, and it's just one day at a time.
I love that. Favourite way to unwind for the day?
Either a beer or go to the gym. So there's a contradiction. There's a real contradiction.
A book or resource that has significantly influenced your business approach.
A book of resource?
A book or resource.
Book, Think Big.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Historical, sporting, or does it matter?
Take your pick.
I'm going to be divisive here. Donald Trump.
The Don. And we'll come back to that. What's one habit or routine that you stick by and have on a day-to-day basis?
I'll definitely walk every day. I've now given up coffee. I haven't had a coffee for 3 weeks, but my walk would include walking to the coffee shop to have a coffee. But now it's no coffee, so it's just a walk. So definitely a walk every day.
So you're not having a coffee with Donald Trump then?
No. I can't have a beer with him because apparently he doesn't drink.
Never drink? No. Why Donald?
I don't know. He's just, for me, look, obviously, when I got not fascinated with him, but I used to watch, when we were in England, they had The Apprentice. And look, we just got addicted to that show. And I went, man, he's an interesting guy. But, he's very divisive. We just gotten back from the States. And, look, we'll never bring up politics. But everyone had something to say about him. Everyone. It was either they loved him or they strongly disliked him.
There's no in between with him.
There's zero in between.
No.
He just looks like a really interesting guy, however you look at him. I just think he's an interesting guy.
Polarising character.
It's extremely. Extreme.
Peter Shiels, thank you very much for joining Your Wealth Playbook.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys.